Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network and a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. My pronouns are he, him, and I am also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And my name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him, and I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are. Jinx, you owe me a frosty beverage. Isn't that what you always say?
Yes. I love a frosty beverage because I don't like Coke, so I always say frosty beverage.
Yeah, I don't like Coke either. Coke is like Satan's brew. I don't know what that
Ooh, I agree. Except for Mexican Coke. I do like Mexican Coca-Cola.
Because it's got the sugar cane.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
But it'll make your teeth turn fuzzy. So you got to be careful.
I drink through a straw, so I don't have to worry about that.
Oh, okay.
Although I guess it's still on the back of my teeth. But anyway. But yes, here at Spoiler Piece, we love to talk about food and we love to talk about movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get into what we will be covering this week, we want to tell you about our bonus episode. Every week we do a bonus Patreon for our patrons. So if you're not a patron, please consider joining. And if you are, you'll want to check out our episode talking about the 2011 sci-fi comedy, Attack the Block.
Yeah.
We had a great time talking about it. It's a great film. So go check it out.
And it's short. If you also see it,
yes.
It's 82 minutes long or something. 86. It's short, whatever.
It is short. I think it's 85 with credits.
There you go.
Yes. But definitely rewatch it, watch it, check it out. All that good stuff. So the films we're going to be talking about this week, we're going to be talking about the latest Bond film, No Time to Die, Bingo Hell, The Guilty, and The Many Saints of Newark. And to kick things off, we're going to have Dave tell us about No Time to Die.
Yeah. I wish this were pronounced No Time to D, just because that would be fun. No Time to D.
That'd be a Tenacious D movie.
Exactly. There would only be Time to D if it were a Tenacious D movie, right?
Yeah.
Don't they only talk about themselves? Anyway, yeah, No Time to Die. It's Daniel Craig's last turn as James Bond. He has described himself as, quote, grumpy Bond, unquote. And I think that that's fairly accurate. And what I was saying off mic is, and I don't know, Megan, you haven't seen a lot of Bond movies, right?
No, just the Daniel Craig ones.
Okay. So Bond movies, people talk about who's a better Bond, whatever. And the movies are all kind of, each actor, I might be alone on this, but the Sean Connery movies feel like Sean Connery Bond movies. The Roger Moore movies feel like Roger Moore movies. You get what I'm saying? It's like the stories don't really change so much. What changes is the attitude of the actor playing James Bond. So Roger Moore was more, I don't want to say he was a ham, but it was certainly more tongue-in-cheek than the Sean Connery stuff, even though there was some tongue-in-cheek stuff with him too. And then you had Timothy Dalton, who was just like hard ass. And then everybody hated that. And then you had Pierce Brosnan, who just sucked. So, those four movies are just dog shit.
Yikes.
Yeah, they're bad. And especially GoldenEye. That is not just a bad Bond movie, but one of the worst movies ever made.
Oh, wait, I did see GoldenEye. I didn't mind it.
You don't think Die Another Day is worse?
I don't remember Die Another Day. I do know that's the last one.
Woof.
But
wait,
anyway,
GoldenEye had Tina Turner. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
Anyway, let's talk about No Time to Die.
No Time to Die.
Yes.
Well, anyway, this movie's getting a lot of flack because it's so long. And first of all, who gives a shit? Like, what else do you have to do? It's COVID. So you can sit home and watch it. Actually, it's in theaters right now.
You can't.
You're right. You can go see it on the big screen, and then maybe in 3 or 4 weeks, it'll be on demand somewhere. I don't know what the plan is for the rollout. But it is like all of the Daniel Craig movies. All of the Daniel Craig movies tie into each other. It was kind of a big deal that Quantum of Solace was a direct sequel to Casino Royale, and that, Skyfall is a direct sequel to Quantum. Like, who gives a shit? But it does make these 5 stories all fit together in a rather unique way in the Bond canon. And I like Daniel Craig as Bond. I think that Spectre was kind of a terrible movie. I liked Skyfall a lot. I thought Casino Royale was hit or miss. And as you both know, I didn't see Quantum of Solace. And this one is I like this one. It is grumpy, but it's like, it makes sense that he's grumpy. He's like tired. He gets the shit kicked out of him. And at least in this one, he barely has to deal with his foster brother, which is one of the dumbest plot points ever in the course of a Bond. It's like, really? Like your foster brother is the bad guy, or rather you were the foster brother, James Bond. I mean, it's just, how stupid is that?
That's weird.
Yeah.
Did you not see that?
Yeah. And also for it to be Christoph Waltz, I really like him, but just too on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, when I say that this movie is of its, all of the Daniel Craig movies are they're a little more serious than all the other ones, except for maybe the Timothy Dalton ones. That's why when you watch the Roger Daltrey, Jesus Christ, what's my problem? The Roger Moore movies, For Your Eyes Only sticks out so much, because For Your Eyes Only, it's like they did like James Bond in New Orleans, and then they did James Bond with Christopher Lee, and then they did James Bond in space, and then all of a sudden... Mm-hmm. For Your Eyes Only is just like James Bond is killing people. What the fuck? So this movie is just No Time to Die is just killing. There's just killing. There's new Bond people. There's a new 007 because Bond is technically retired. And she is a badass, and Ana de Armas is in it. She's a CIA badass. Felix Leiter returns for one last go around, and Léa Seydoux is Léa Seydoux, who I know that Megan doesn't like so much because she has that one look on her face that she does.
Yeah, I don't like her.
But I think she's lovely in everything, and she's great in this. And this movie has a lot more, like, they didn't really do anything with her character in Spectre. It's like, oh yeah, she was, somebody's daughter, and now she's a psychiatrist, whatever. This one, she's actually, a part of the plot in a way that makes a lot of sense. And Rami Malek is the bad guy, but Rami Malek's fine. It's just not a particularly good bad guy. Although the thing that he wants to do to kill everybody is kind of amazing. Nanorobots. So,
that's like one of my favorite 80s movies.
Yeah, but nanorobots that are tailored to your DNA. So anybody who shares like a family member, if you get like these nanobots on you, right? And then you touch like your dad's done for. So it's like that kind of thing. So yeah. So that's why it depends on once you get infected with these nanobots, there are people you can never be around. So James Bond gets infected with them, so he can't be with his daughter. He's got a daughter. Oh my God. I mean, big surprise. He and Léa Seydoux were like doing it all the time in the last movie. So, and in this one, because this one opens up with them being together, and then he goes to Vesper's grave, Vesper, Eva Green, and then Blofeld tries to blow him up, and that's what starts off the whole thing. And then it's like, let's chase everybody, blah, 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 it's Bond. And then that's it. I mean, so it's better than Spectre. It's not as good as Skyfall. It is long, but who cares? And it's got a lot of creeping around, which is kind of fun in a Bond movie.
Ooh, I'm getting that.
Yeah, lots of like, shh, be quiet, because that guy over there could probably whack him on the head, so.
Right. You don't want him doing the Metal Gear Solid alert noise.
Exactly.
Which we've been talking about all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that somebody at some point would be like, I don't have a weapon. Hit him with a brick, or something like that. But there was none of that. It was the old standard, like, oh, I've got, my Walter PPK or whatever the gun is that Bond has. So it was fine. I had a good time with it. If you like the Daniel Craig Bonds, you'll probably like this one. If you don't like him, it's not for you. I mean, Bond isn't for everyone. He's not like, I don't need to see any of the Roger Moore movies again. I don't need to see any of the Pierce Brosnan movies. I don't even really like the Sean Connery movies so much. It's just, Bond is kind of iconic because it's James Bond, not because it's good,
Right.
So,
and it's such a long running franchise that it's kind of just like, you're either kind of on the James Bond train or you're not. Like, I know there was a period of time where they would come out a lot around Thanksgiving, and my family is going through this phase where we'd go to the movies on Thanksgiving. So I remember seeing a couple of the Bond movies in theaters on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So anyway, I would say see it, but whatever. It's, it's up to you. I mean, if you're Grumpy Bond, if you like Grumpy Cat, maybe you like Grumpy Bond. Who knows? So I'd say go for it. But
Bond. Grumpy Bond.
Yeah. Grumpy is my middle name. Okay.
I mean, you've kind of spoiler pieced me into it, and I like Carrie Joji Fukunaga. I like Lashana Lynch, and I really liked her in Captain Marvel, and I'm really excited that she's the new Bond, the first woman. That's exciting. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it appears that Bond dies at the end of the movie, but after the credits roll, it says James Bond will return. And it doesn't say,
in classic style.
say 007 will return. It says James Bond will return. So, who knows what's going on. But I mean, these movies make so much goddamn money at this point, they'd be ridiculously stupid not to keep making them. So, as expensive as they are.
Yeah, it is interesting though, because Daniel Craig has wanted to stop for many years, and they keep offering him more money to come back.
Well, I do kind of, on this, he broke his femur when he was making Spectre, and then he broke his ankle when he was making this, and it's a physically demanding role. I mean, people are like, "Ooh, acting, how hard can it be?" Well, you do have to fall off things and get punched in the face, so that's hard work.
Right. And maybe he wants to, spread his wings and do something different. So Knives Out too.
That's right.
But all right, Dave, did you have any other thoughts on No Time to Die?
No, I think I went more than 5 minutes too. I'm sorry. So,
but you did spoiler piece me into wanting to see it. I don't know about you, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, I like the James Bond movies generally, and agree that the Daniel Craig movies have been kind of hit or miss in places, but I'm still interested in seeing this at some point, so I'm sure I will.
All right. Well, let's talk about Bingo Hell, horror film, part of the Welcome to the Blumhouse series on Amazon Prime. This is co-written and directed by Gigi Saul Guerrero, stars Adriana Barraza and L. Scott Caldwell. And basically it's about two older women living in a rundown community, and they've been there for a very long time. They're very protective of their community. And this guy comes in, and he's Mr. Big, and he starts running a very swanky bingo game, giving away lots of money. But the catch is when people win the money, they die.
I like this movie better the first time I saw it, when it was called Needful Things by Stephen King. And that wasn't a good movie, and neither is this fucking thing. Jesus. Evan, I know you said you liked it. I'm sorry. I had to break in immediately. This movie was just like, it was like 85 minutes of torture. How did you feel?
Well, I mean, I was entertained. It's subtle. This movie is not. It's definitely got a point of view. It's definitely got, things it's trying to say about greed and the dangers of greed and, selling your soul for riches. Like, it's completely unsubtle. I think one of its strengths is that it's so short. So I think it kind of gets in and out, in my opinion. It didn't drag for me. I enjoyed the characters. I love sassy older characters, which the main characters in this are. And I don't know. I thought there was something sweet about the community is run down, but there's this, group of diehard friends who have been there forever, raised their kids, raising their grandkids in this community, and they're all still friends. And I love that that's kind of where it all comes together at the end is, we're all friends. We don't need to be in this dump of a town anymore. Let's go somewhere different and we'll still be best friends.
Except for the three of you who died.
Yes.
So
that's one of the things other things I liked about this movie is like, so, when people they get this like dollar bill, this dollar sign stamp on their hand as part of the bingo, and then they win, and then they like have these crazy hallucinations of like grandeur. It's really the best way to describe it. And they're actually doing something really horrible to themselves. I found that just entertaining. Like when the guy's in his garage and you think he's drinking beers, and it turns out he's just chugging motor oil and sticking his hand in the engine. I don't know. I just thought there was something amusing about that concept, but that's just me.
Megan.
So I really like, as you guys know, this is going to come as no surprise. I really like when there's social commentary in horror. Horror is innately a political genre, so I love when there is social commentary, and this definitely is not subtle, and it wears its political bent on its sleeve that greed is bad, capitalism's bad, gentrification is bad. I mean, we see hipsters coming in and we see the microbrewery about to come in and a very hipstery cafe and the free little library nook. And Lupita, who is the protagonist, is, really disgusted by it. And that's a great commentary to see because rich people and corporations prey on these communities, quite often communities of color, and they push people out so they can, gentrify and bring in these kinds of hipster businesses. And don't get me wrong, I love a coffee shop. I love, bookstores and libraries, like little free ones. But yeah, I mean, gentrification is a massive, massive problem. And it's a massive part of white supremacy and capitalism, which are huge problems, obviously. So yeah, I love that conceptually. I think the problem with this film...
There's the big but.
There's a big but. The problem with this... Oh, and I should also say, I really, really like... oh my God, I totally spaced on her name. And I just said it. Oh, Adriana Barraza as Lupita. I really like her. I think she's great. She's cantankerous. She reminded me a lot of the protagonist in Lucky Grandma, which was such a great film. And I like that. What I do not like, though, is that I found this, and this pains me to say it because I love women-directed horror. I wanted to like this so much because I love a commentary on, gentrification. But this to me was extremely tedious and extremely dull. And to me, there's a lot of ideas, but they're not very deep. They're very shallow. And
I agree with all of this, by the way.
Thank you. I didn't care about any of the characters except kind of Lupita. Like she was the only one I kind of sort of cared about. But to me, there just wasn't enough of her or knowing enough about her to care more. And I didn't care about any of the other characters, unfortunately. And there's like a whole subplot about Dolores, her best friend's grandson, Caleb. And I didn't care about that. And I just wish the commentary was kind of woven throughout more because there's a scene where Caleb is talking to Eric, one of the guys who's lived in the community for a really long time, and he knew Caleb's father. And he's talking about how money doesn't solve problems and like money is not the answer. And the only thing I could think of is I'm like, okay, I understand why you have that in here because it ties into the commentary about capitalism and gentrification. But at the same time, I'm like, as someone who's grown up poor, that's like something somebody would say who's never been poor. And that doesn't really coincide with the community, which has been financially struggling. So it kind of took me out of the moment. It was kind of frustrating because money does give you access to things. Unfortunately, it of course does not buy happiness, but it does provide access to healthcare, mobility, things like that. So it just was, I don't know. So anyway, I had problems with a lot of the acting. I had problems with the very stylized, jarring editing, which drove me bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like the neon lighting. That worked for me, but unfortunately that was about it. So
man, I think the lighting just like, I'm all for lighting how you want to light things, but just nothing about this was like a surprise in any way. It's like there was a sledgehammer and everything else is a nail and you're just hitting you don't even need a sledgehammer to hit fucking nails. You need a hammer. But like with this, it's just like everything is just, let's do everything times 1,000. I mean, when the bad guy shows up, now you see him like kind of lurking in the shadows and being creepy, or you see his hands or whatever. But when that guy shows up with that face and those teeth, the first thing you think is, oh, I want to play this bingo game. Are you fucking crazy? I mean, why don't you cast somebody who looks benevolent instead of somebody who looks like a caricature of a character like this? I mean, just piss poor. So,
I mean, I think what that's kind of speaking to is this film kind of has a campiness or wants to have a campiness that
it's not good enough though.
No, and that's the thing. Like I'm seeing what it's doing and I'm like, oh, I really want to be into this. And I just wasn't, because you're right. For me, it just wasn't good enough for me to be into. I needed better writing. I needed more character development. I needed just kind of some more. There's not enough. And I almost never say this. There's just not enough plot here.
Ooh. You know what you need? You need Max von Sydow as Satan, like he was in Needful Things. That's what you need. So.
Yeah, he definitely would have added some significant flair to the part of Mr. Big.
Yeah, and height. Don't forget that.
Yes.
Yeah. Although I don't think that guy was short. I'm just saying that Max von Sydow was very tall. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This guy his character did have a creepy way of standing behind people and putting his arms on their shoulders.
Yeah.
That was icky. But yeah, I understand I understand all of the gripes. I just was able to power through some of this in a way that I was like, okay.
Powered through gripes.
It's not subtle. It can be, I don't know. I enjoyed the bits that were kind of more stylized, and I liked, like I said, I liked the hallucinatory sequences. I thought they were just kind of like mad.
No, and I
like
hear
a bonkers
it.
kind of way.
And I wish I did. And I feel like the elements are there. And for me, it just needed more, like more tweaking, more depth, more something. But the elements are there. It's not, that's why I'm actually really bummed that I didn't like it, because if you described this movie to me, and I mean, I wanted to really see this when I read the premise, and I was like, yes, this sounds great. I love older people as protagonists, especially in a horror film. Like, yes. But it just, didn't work for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, but in practice, no. At least in this movie.
Fair enough.
But I love that you loved it, Evan, because like I said, there's definitely a stylized flair there. There's definitely like I said, not quite a campiness, but kind of, sort of. And, it definitely is, kind of, not tongue in cheek either, but it definitely has a sense of humor about what it's doing. I just wish I was more into it.
Yeah. Same. I would think, based on how it sounds on paper, I assumed that you would probably like this, but right? I totally get all the reasons why you don't, and why you don't, Dave. And I am not begrudging any of those criticisms, because I think they're fair criticisms of this movie.
Thank you.
But do you guys have any other thoughts?
Nah.
No, I mean, the short movie to talk about too.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, let's move on to The Guilty, which is a remake of the 2018 Danish film, The Guilty. And this film stars Jake Gyllenhaal and is directed by Anton Fuqua and written by Nick Pizzolatto. And the summary of this, the synopsis of this, is that Jake Gyllenhaal is a cop who has been put on sort of on leave, in that he can't be an actual cop, but he is taking 911 calls. And this is in the LA area. And so there's lots of wildfires going on. And he takes a 911 call from a woman, and he thinks that she is in trouble, abducted. And he becomes very fixated on this case and her call.
Yeah. And we know that something's gone on with him. Like, he's waiting, like tomorrow he's supposed to have some big day in court. He's separated from his wife, and seems like there might even be a restraining order going on. It seems like he's kind of, I don't know, desperate to try and reclaim some of his power of being a policeman. But I think that's one of the issues I have with this movie, is the idea that being a 911 operator is a punishment.
Oh,
it's
interesting.
a tough job. It's a tough job to have to do. Like, I used to work in tech support. I worked with someone who used to be a cop and used to be a 911 operator, and just like hearing how hard it was to deal with, like, I don't know, it's a challenge unto itself. So I think I think it's kind of insulting to people who do that and do that important work, to kind of treat it like it's somebody's punishment.
I hadn't thought of that. I mean, to play devil's advocate, it is punishment for this character in his mind, not just actual punishment, but
right.
Yeah.
No, but that's a great, I thought he was thinking it's punishment, but I didn't get the sense that that's what the film is saying, that it's punishment in general. But you're right. Great point. Great point.
Yes.
Shucks.
Salient, you might say. Thank you. Well, we know what Evan thinks. Megan, what did you think?
Oh, I was going to ask you, Dave.
Oh, well, I can go or you can go.
I'll go. Sure. Why not? So I really enjoyed the original Danish film. So I was kind of like, I really get irritated when there are English language remakes because it's not necessary. Read the fucking subtitles. You don't need it. But having said that, I will say I think Jake Gyllenhaal is absolutely outstanding in this. I think he gives a staggering performance. I was so impressed with his emotional, running the gamut of his emotional spectrum. I mean, we start off, he's very agitated. You know, it's very clear right away. He's having difficulty breathing. He has an inhaler, and it could be because of the wildfires, but it's very clear that's not what's happening because he has a lot of anxiety. He's very agitated. He's very angry very easily, very irritable. He has a ringing in his ears. So there's clearly some PTSD or something going on with him. At a very, very early stage, you get that sense, and you don't know fully until almost the very end of the film what's going on. But yeah, I think Jake Gyllenhaal's performance is really what anchors this film, and has to, because the entire film is Jake Gyllenhaal on the phone with other people, and most of it is just him with voice acting. And I think he is really fantastic. I think Riley Keough as Emily, the woman he's talking to, I think her voice acting is really great. I always love Riley Keough. I always love seeing what she does because I think she's really chameleonic. So I think she's, again, great here. This is very tense. I think the score is good. It's very subtle, but very tense. And I did like this. What my big problem with is in this film is, so there's clearly a commentary happening on police, because when Jake Gyllenhaal's character Joe talks to Emily's daughter, who's 6 years old, Abby, on the phone, and he's trying to, find out what's going on, and he's trying to locate Emily because she's in a van with her ex. And Abby doesn't want to have police at the house. She's 6, but she knows she doesn't want police. And he keeps saying, we're protectors, we help people. And she's like, no, you don't. You took away my daddy. And so it's really interesting to kind of get that perspective. And it is potentially, it kind of rides this line between kind of propaganda and kind of a commentary on police, or really on a broken social system, because Henry, Emily's ex, talks about later in the film, he says, like, nobody helps, not doctors, not lawyers, not social workers. But my big problem, and this is why I love that we spoil shit on Spoiler Piece, because I do not know how you talk about this film without spoiling the shit out of it. My problem is that, and the original film does this too, to be fair, but my problem is that I'm disturbed that what seems like for a majority of the film that this is an abduction, it's a domestic violence situation, it's a stalking situation, it then pivots to a mental health crisis of a woman attempting to murder her baby. And just for a shocking, lurid twist. And that really bothers me and does not sit well with me.
Yeah. I think for me, that bothered me too. But I think you're talking about this idea of like commentary about the police, and you definitely see it in this character, the way he looks at people, and so much a binary. They're either a perpetrator or a victim.
Yes.
Like, and the way he judges some people he talks to on the phone and is rude to them and is dismissive of them as a 911 operator. And I think the fact that it turns into a mental health situation and it's about him saving her life, I don't want to say it absolves him, but it definitely makes him a more sympathetic character, which I think is problematic because of what he's done. When we find out that he's murdered someone, and we don't know all the details of it, but we know that he killed someone in the line of duty.
We know that he knows
it wasn't justified.
Right. We know that he knows it wasn't justified.
Right.
Yes.
And so it kind of like, it kind of gives him like a pat on the back at the end, especially when we find out, he's decided to plead, guilty to manslaughter and, take his punishment. And so I feel like in kind of that way, it detracts from the message in a way that's frustrating. But I have to say, I had a very unique experience watching this movie because I was actually dealing with a domestic violence situation on my street.
Ooh.
Like one of my neighbors was in trouble and was calling for help. And we actually went outside to try and help them. And like, helped them and kept them company, and their kid was with them and like kept them company and like talk to them, waiting for police to come to deal with the situation. So it was like a really weird frame of mind to be in while watching this movie. Like, because we maybe like 20 or 30 minutes into the movie when all this happened, and then we like came back in after everything happened. And so it was just, I don't know, it's just kind of like a jarring mental state to be in, to be watching the rest of the movie. Yeah, and so like in that way, like I felt the intensity of it, but at the same time, kind of getting back to what I was just saying, it was that much more frustrating, the kind of like turn that it took at the end.
I'm so I'm not so glad you had to experience that. I'm so glad, because I really want to be clear about that. I'm so glad you shared that, Evan, because as I've shared this on the show before, I'm a domestic violence survivor, and I am a stalking survivor, and and people don't believe you, and people minimize it, sadly. Like, not everyone, of course, but a lot of people do. And so you're feeling this acutely as a person who is kindly and generously helping your neighbor. And I agree, like I've experienced it too. And then to have the film kind of make that shift, that pivot, just feels insulting.
Well, interesting. I think I dislike this more than both of you. and I didn't really think that deeply about it. Although, I mean, my inclination, and you guys know I love cop movies, but my inclination is to always think cops are bad, especially in movies. And I just I thought this was predictable. Like, I don't know why. We've talked about this a million times before, how I can always guess the end of a movie. But I was thinking to myself, well, clearly this is like, there was just something about the way Riley Keough was playing the part that I was just like, well, this is not what we think it is. It's maybe she's been kidnapped, but it's not because her ex-husband is trying to like abduct her and murder her. It's because something else is going on, which is exactly what happened. And I also thought that the change over to mental health, kind of, it's a mental health crisis, just was kind of cheap. And I also thought, ex-husband Henry, if you have gone to your ex-wife's home and she has stabbed your younger child, where's your fucking head? Why haven't you called a paramedic or somebody? Like, your first inclination is to stick your wife in a van and take her to the, like,
right?
Nobody wants to call the police and have them, suicide by cop. No one wants that. But at the same time, you're dealing with a critically wounded child, and your first decision is to put your wife in the trunk of a car or whatever you do and drive her out of Los Angeles to a mental hospital? What? It's a
weird choice.
Now, I'm not saying that, people, when faced with a real crisis like that, who knows how they'd fucking react. But movies have to make sense, and this is it's just dumb. It's just dumb. So, that really bugged me. And, Children in Peril is a really easy way to get an audience on your side quickly. So the whole thing is just kind of crummy. It's just kind of like, it takes all these elements that are sort of geared toward, I don't want to say lazy filmmaking, but it's like Children in Peril exist to give you, an emotional response instantly, and ex-husband abducting ex-wife. You have a thing, but this movie is so coy with its like tightrope about. I'm having a hard time articulating it because it bothered me so much. Just with Joe's she's been abducted, and it's like, no, I've seen too many movies. Maybe she's been abducted, but it's not because she's been abducted. It's because of something else,
right? Yeah, you get the sense, at least I did as I was watching, that there was some kind of twist coming. It's not going to be like straightforward.
Yeah.
I don't know. I totally agree with you, Megan, that Jake Gyllenhaal gives like an incredible performance.
I agree with that too, by the way.
The movie has to hang on him, and it does, and he's great. I, like you, Dave, was not a fan of Riley Keough's performance. Something about it just, I don't know. it seemed, to use your word, kind of coy. Like it seemed like there was a coyness to it in a way that I found distracting. Like it seemed like it was like I can't quite put my finger on it, but something about it I found distracting when he was talking to her on the phone.
Yeah.
I just want to say that what I find really interesting, and I wanted to come back to what you had said, Evan, about the movie patting him on the back.
Mm-hmm.
The Danish film, and most of the Danish film is beat for beat. This is the same film for most of it. There are a couple very important differences. One of them is that the baby does not survive. The baby is dead. Yeah. And the other one, which I think is an extremely, extremely important difference, is that the protagonist is not in a room by himself. He is in a room with his colleagues when he makes that confession to the woman.
Oh, wow.
And so they hear him. So they know. And that for me, and they're like horrified, like looking at him. So that to me is very different because he's not regaled as a hero or, gets to pat himself on the back. So to me, it leaves a different tone and an important tone.
That is very important.
Yeah. So I still have the same problem with the shocking twist. And I say shocking, not necessarily that, because Dave, obviously you saw something coming, but just that it is, intended to be shocking. I still have a massive problem with that, but at least it's not, applauding him in the same way.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like I might have to go back and rewatch because maybe there is something that's kind of letting him off the hook more, but then I'm remembering, but yeah.
It's just a good thing that Jake Gyllenhaal is as good as he is, because if this were a lesser performer, I mean, this movie would be fucking deadly. And it's only 91 minutes long with credits. So, which is usually the sign of like, when you have a 91-minute movie with a major star, you're like, why is this movie 91 minutes? And then this makes perfect sense because it's a fucking phone call. But there's just too many problems with this for me to recommend, even though I was kind of like, I was compelled to keep watching it. But I think
it is a compelling film. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think to your point, Megan, I think that's because of Jake Gyllenhaal. Although there were a couple times when I'm like, I didn't look at the cast list before I watched this. And I was just like, is that Ethan Hawke playing his sergeant? And it was. I didn't know that was Peter Sarsgaard as the father. But
no, I didn't recognize anybody's voice. I was ridiculous. Yeah. And I usually do recognize voices.
Yeah, I saw Paul Dano's name in the credits. Like, who the fuck was Paul Dano? And then he was one of the callers. But I didn't. Yeah, I think
it's like some Frasier style situation. Like, okay, who's calling in for advice?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that what I can deduce from this is that it's time to take away Nick Pizzolatto's screenwriting card.
Oh,
so because you've got True Detective, and then everything else he's done since then, dog shit. So I mean, this isn't.
This isn't dog shit, but
I mean, the Magnificent Seven remake, that's pretty horrible.
I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it, but whatever. But I also don't like, if it disappeared tomorrow, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
True Detective season 1 is brilliant, but
it's great.
Yeah.
And then you have season 2 and you're like, why didn't you just give him an extra year? I mean, come on.
But I also have a big problem with, and I don't mean his entire oeuvre, but I have a big problem with Anton Fuqua's Training Day, because that is also a film that, even though Denzel Washington is playing, a very complicated villainous cop, there's a lot of propaganda in that too.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
for sure.
Yeah. So I have a problem, but I will say Jake Gyllenhaal, great performance. He's always great. And he is great again here.
Yeah.
But there's just, and this is compelling. You are totally right, Dave. But there's just so many issues with it. And like I said, it's interesting thinking about it because I liked the Danish film too, but it has a lot of the same problems. But the guy who's leading that is also really riveting and really great.
I even overlooked I liked Jake Gyllenhaal so much, I overlooked the fact that he sounds like he's 11. So, That's for Evan, everybody.
I know it is, but I don't think
critiques.
he sounds like he's 11.
I'm joking.
No, I don't think he does either. I like to joke
okay.
that Jake Gyllenhaal has like the same voice he's had since he was like a teenager. I don't know that he really does anymore, but I felt like that was a thing for a while.
Maybe he just sounded like an adult when he was a kid.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny? I had never saw any Jake Gyllenhaal movies when he was young. I think the first movie I saw him in, he was, I don't know what it was, but he was an adult. So it was like, so when you said that, I'm like, wait, he was Bubble Boy? What? I had no idea. So
fair enough. Do we have any final thoughts on The Guilty?
It's guilty of being bad. Was that Evan worthy? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, was that dad jokey enough?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right. Then we're going to talk about our final film, The Many Saints of Newark, the Sopranos prequel that is directed by Alan Taylor and written by David Chase and someone else whose name I now can't remember. I think it's Lawrence Koner, something like that. Anyway, this is a prequel to the much critically acclaimed and lauded show starring the late, great James Gandolfini. And this time around, it's focusing on a young Tony Soprano, Tony as a kid and then Tony as a teenager, starring his James Gandolfini's son, Michael Gandolfini. And it looks at Dickie Moltisanti, who had a huge influence on Tony's life. And it has a lot of the familiar characters from the show.
Yeah, in younger form.
Yeah, I gotta jump in. It's Moltisanti. So
okay, thanks.
Well, you know what? It's the kind of thing you would correct me on. Haha. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. The only reason I bring it up is because you hear the name Moltisanti 8 million times.
I know. I actually thought I said Moltisanti, so there we are.
Yeah.
It's getting late. I'm sleepy.
It's okay.
But no, thank you. I am very precise and I do like the precision. So thank you for correcting me.
So you both know that I am no Sopranos fan. I've seen most of the show. I've never understood its appeal. I mean, I think it's really well acted and all of that, but I just, and watching this movie was just kind of like, I don't give a fuck who, was Tony's mentor. Tony's a fucking asshole. Like it's, we're supposed to, like, the thing about The Sopranos is what bothers me about The Sopranos and what bothers me about a lot of gangster movies is, and I like gangster movies, is it's like, these are horrible people. These are horrible, violent killers and they're misogynists, but aren't they kind of cool? And this is what goes on in this movie too. And it's just, there's nothing in this that I need to know about any of these people. Who cares that Tony's mentor is Michael, what's the actor's name?
Imperioli.
Michael Imperioli's, father's character. Like, who cares? I just, what a waste of Vera Farmiga and John Bernthal and
huge waste of John Bernthal. That's outrageous.
Yeah. I would have liked to see him more in this.
I thought it looked shitty. Like it just, it's just fucking gray, and I know that that's kind of the thing now to make movies set in it used to be they had warm amber tones, especially if you were feeling nostalgic. And now like movies that take place in the past are all like that weird blue gray from the 90s.
But that's not why this looks like shit, just to be clear.
This just looks like shit because it looks like shit. And it's also just the pacing is all over the fucking place.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Yeah.
And also Tony's barely in it. This is Dickie's story.
Correct.
And who fucking cares who Dickie is?
Well,
who cares?
So, all right. All right. So I do love The Sopranos.
I do too.
I have not rewatched it recently. I feel like I'm definitely due after seeing this, but I think it's important to note what an impact the show had on pop culture and on television in terms of featuring an anti-hero so prominently and having kind of like, I don't know, just like a lot of, it's kind of a heady show for being a show about gangsters and
Mhm.
and killing and stuff.
Mhm.
And there's definitely some really interesting characters and I love their dynamics. So I was definitely looking forward to seeing this movie, but I feel similarly to you, Dave, and like kind of like what's the point of it? Like, it's fun to see younger versions of all these characters you know and love, but I definitely want to, when I think about this movie, the first thing I think of is the many saints anew. What is John Majaro doing in this movie?
Oh my God. And he's
one
terrible.
of the most distracting performances I've ever seen in a movie. Any scene he's in as young Silvio, I just like, what is this guy doing? He's doing some type of weird Steve Van Zandt / Robert De Niro impression that's just so, it sticks out so badly.
It's such a caricature.
Yeah, it's terrible. So like, on the one hand, I like seeing younger versions of some of these characters. It's funny to see, Paulie Walnuts, painting his nails at the table and then needing to kind of, grab the salt shaker in a way so he doesn't mess up his nail polish. Okay. Like funny jokes like that and backstory. But like, I watched this movie and I paused it 40 minutes in and I feel like nothing had happened after 40 minutes of watching this movie. And I think there could be something interesting. Like, I hate voiceover normally, and it's pretty intrusive in here. This idea in the beginning, which I think is actually not a terrible idea, where we're at the cemetery and we come to Christopher Moltisanti's grave and he's our narrator and he's kind of giving us this backstory, but his voiceover is so intrusive in the movie.
Wait,
and
you think that's not a bad idea? That he's narrating from hell?
See, I think there could be something interesting from this idea of like, we're in the cemetery and the people who are dead are telling their stories. Like, I think that could be interesting, but I think it's just so intrusive and so heavy handed that it just doesn't really work in this movie.
I can see that. I think it is an abysmal choice. And I think it's an abhorrent choice. And I also have to say, I feel like I have to preface everything I'm about to say very similarly to you, Evan. I love The Sopranos, and I did rewatch it very recently, and like within the past year or so. And it is a show I love. I love shows about antiheroes. I disagree with you, Dave. I do not think that this show makes Tony or any of them look cool. I think that's kind of one of the beauties of the show, is I think it makes them all look like pieces of shit, because they are pieces of shit. And even Tony, who, has mental health struggles, has panic attacks, loves the ducks, loves his horse, doesn't matter. He, even if you understand his pain, even if you have maybe some sympathy or empathy for his pain, he's still a fucking abusive, violent piece of shit. And that's the point. And so, but that doesn't mean a person can't be interesting, even if they're a terrible, horrible human. And so I really like that. And I think the beauty of The Sopranos as a show is, you are absolutely right, Evan. It is so heady. It is extremely verbose. It is, in that there are so many conversations, but a lot of things kind of quote unquote don't happen, but really everything is happening between characters and power dynamics. And I love that about the show. This film drains every ounce of subtlety, nuance, power, awe, anything compelling that the show had. It just drains it. It's gone. And this doesn't even feel like it's in the same universe as The Sopranos. And here's the thing. A filmmaker is going to put their stamp on it, of course. You can't have Alan Taylor do it, because Alan Taylor, I think, is a terrible director. I think his movies are terrible. I think he has directed a lot of episodes of a lot of fantastic shows: Sex and the City, Sopranos, Mad Men, great shows. However, I don't think he is great as a film director, because Thor: The Dark World is terrible. And
did he do that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes, he did. And it's a horrible film. But yeah, so I think this is just such a waste of time. I think it's a waste of the cast. John Barenthal, completely wasted here. I think Alessandro Nivola is okay. I think Michael Gandolfini. Yeah, I think Michael Gandolfini is good, especially in one scene where he's like sitting at the table and he kind of like wipes his face with his hand. And I'm like, oh, James Gandolfini as Tony used to do that all the time. And it's kind of like a nice little touch. I think Vera Farmiga is actually my favorite here because Livia was always such a fascinating character to me because she's an absolute atrocious monster in the show. And it was really interesting to see her here. And I'm also really glad they addressed her mental health struggles and that, she just brushed aside, as many people did at that time, arguably. And Tony really cared about what happened to her, well-being. And that was kind of nice to see. However, like you said, Dave, who fucking cares? Because I didn't learn anything new. Anything I wanted to know about Tony, anything I wanted to know about Livia, anything I wanted to know about any of these characters, I gleaned from the show. The only thing that was kind of awful to see and also kind of interesting is the car scene where Tony's father shoots her hair because he doesn't like her complaining, and it's fucking horrifying.
I know. I was like, when I saw that, the first thing I thought was, it's like, oh my God, he shot his wife in the head. And I'm like, no, wait. Then I was like, no, wait, she's in the show.
Right. But I thought the same thing. I was like, oh my God, he just shot her dead. But like, no,
It's so startling.
Yes,
it is startling. But then she doesn't react like she's deaf in one ear or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of things just from a technical level that are wrong with that, aside from the fact that it's fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
And it is kind of effective in that moment. But the thing that really, really, I mean, I didn't like Dickie. I didn't like him.
Well, he's a horrible human.
Well, right. Yeah. But we're talking about how anti-heroes can be compelling and et cetera. And that's all fair. True. I mean, it's like when you watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I mean, I'm not so interested in, well, he's not really good, Clint Eastwood, but I'm more interested in Lee Van Cleef, who is just like a horrible specimen of a human being, but he's fucking Lee Van Cleef. And this, you need somebody who's more charismatic. And I don't generally have a problem with Alessandro Nivola. I think he's done some good stuff, but I don't think he's your anchor,
it should have been John Barenthal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Alessandro Nivola can be charismatic. Have either of you seen The Art of Self-Defense?
No.
I think he plays basically like an evil sensei at this dojo, and I feel like he has the charisma to carry it. And I saw elements of that here. I just don't think the character is very well written.
Right.
I don't think that he.
Well, you don't spend enough time with anybody. Also,
right? Yeah, it's such a sprawling story. You want to know the moment though that felt the most like The Sopranos? The scenes where he's there in the prison talking to the Ray Liotta twin brother, who likely is not real, based on that like that one moment where he like whips around and he's just like mysteriously not there.
Right.
No, I think he actually is real.
You think he was real?
I think he was real too. Yeah. I think he just had enough of that conversation.
Yeah, he was like, "Fuck you, I'm out of here," because it was very clear very early on that the twin brother wanted nothing to do with him and nothing to do with mob life anymore.
But that, to me, those conversations felt the most like Sopranos. Like it for me felt fair. Like something I would see in the show. And so I liked those scenes. I liked when he was there talking to, I'm going to put in air quotes, good Ray Liotta.
Right.
He was the good Ray Liotta. You're right.
Yeah. So I don't know. There was something there that I liked.
I appreciated quiet Ray Liotta, by the way, because when he first shows up and he's like doing his Ray Liotta thing and just being loud and obnoxious, I was like, this is what it's become later in his career. God damn it, I'm so sick of this. And then you've got the like completely repressed Ray Liotta in the prison. I was like, okay, acting good.
Ray Liotta was great in Marriage Story.
Yes, he was. That's true.
And he was great. And you're right. He's great as the quiet brother. I agree with you. I like Ray Liotta better when he's kind of like quiet than when he's kind of bombastic.
Yeah. Well, he's got one of those. Go ahead.
Yes. Oh, I was just going to say, I agree with you, Evan, that the prison conversations are the most Sopranos-esque. I also think the guidance counselor talking to Tony is very Sopranos-esque too. I saw this comparison made at LA Times. They had a conversation between three of their critics about the movie. And one of them said this, I think it was this, actually might have been The Ringer. Anyway, I digress. Someone else said, not me, that this was the Dr. Melfi moment. Actually, it was The Ringer. But yeah, so that kind of felt Sopranos-esque too. But again, this is just, and by the way, John Magaro I love him. He is exceptional in First Cow, and he is absolute horrifyingly bad here. Like, what is happening?
He really is.
So
it's
bad.
So misplaced.
I know people, like some people are like, oh, it's great to see young Silvio. It's great to see young, Paulie. I don't care. And I have to say, but if you're going to do that, you have to make me care and not just do bad caricatures with bad prosthetic noses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just found this was such a colossal waste of time. I fucking hated this movie.
Yeah.
Like hated. Like
it was a slog.
Yeah, it was a slog. It made me angry. If you're trying to lure people into watching the show, just watch the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't waste your time with this.
Yeah, and it has this frustrating ending that's like a tie-in to the show where you have this like moment where, it's so agitating.
Wait,
so
what was the ending again?
The pinky swear in the coffin.
Pinky swear. Yeah, the pinky swear. Yeah,
that moment outraged me. When the theme song starts playing, which is a great theme song, by the way, I was fucking livid. I was livid. I was like, this dog shit of a movie is now doing this. It's descending even further into garbage.
Right. And that's when, Christopher says something about, I went to hell for my. So I think there could have been something really interesting in this idea of family, loyalty, and the self-destructive relationships between Tony and Dickie and Tony and Christopher. I think there is a theme there. There's something interesting that could have been done with that, but that's just it. This ending is completely unearned when we get to this like pinky swear moment, and it's like, oh, in Dickie trying to push Tony away from a life of crime, but then being gunned down, actually pushing him into it. It's just, oh my god, it's so fucking annoying.
I have to say, I think that completely undermines everything about Tony, because it's very clear in the show that Tony did not want this life. He wanted to be a football player. He did not want this life. He did not want to go into it. So if you're going to explore a young Tony, let's actually look at like more of that. Like, you're not going to convince me like, oh, well, his uncle died and he worshipped his uncle. And so now all of a sudden, oh, my uncle's dead. Now I'm going to go into a life of crime. Like, no, it's horseshit. That's not it at all. Because in the show, we know he never wanted this life, and he still doesn't want this life, even though he finds an alluring the power of this life. So it's just, we haven't even talked about like the Leslie Odom side story and how that feels like a completely separate movie. Like as far as all of the riots. Yeah. And well, funny enough, David Chase, that was his film that he wanted to work on when he was in film school. He wanted to have a movie where 4 guys come home from the Vietnam War, not the Vietnam War, but they come home from war and the Newark riots are happening. And then he tabled that idea. And then he brought it back out to incorporate into this movie. And I'm like, well, no wonder why it feels like 2 completely separate movies, because they are. And it just is annoying. And why is Giuseppina the Dickie's father or Dickie's stepmother, and then she becomes the mistress, and then he murders her? So we just see that he's a violent, misogynist, abusive fuck too, which is gross.
I really had, when he killed her, I was really just, I already didn't like this movie, but I was just like, this is just like, I know we're not supposed to like these people, even though they're compelling, but this is just gross. It's just gross. Like, you're a fucking piece of shit, Dickie. No wonder she's sleeping with someone else. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. I was so outraged. Thank you for voicing all of my concerns.
It was vomitous.
Good word.
Killing. And not just because the killing itself was gross, but because that scene immediately preceding it was them fucking in the bathroom.
Yes.
And like being all over each other. And then like immediately he switches into, oh, you fucked someone else, you fucked a black man, so I'm going to murder you in cold blood right now.
And yeah, also, it's the conflation of violence and sex, which is disgusting and appalling.
Yeah, and there are two other problems with it. First of all, it's like the tone switching from the fucking to the killing, like you were just talking about, Evan. But also the way that scene is shot and edited where he drowns her, it's like you can barely fucking tell what's going on. It's like, is he drowning? Is she drowning? Oh, she did drown. Wait a minute. Okay, so now he's on the shore. Is the riptide going to pull him back in? Like, what the fuck? It's just like, and by the way, they weren't that far out there, and all of a sudden they're like 40 feet out there. It's like, I mean, just Jesus. The tide doesn't change that quickly, especially on kind of a calm day like this. Ugh. Well, I've said my piece.
It was so awful. I know. I could just keep going on about how much I hated and despised and loathed this. I was so outraged. What a waste of time. What a waste of a potentially good, like, Evan, I know you said a few times, like, there's a good idea there. And that's the thing. I think Sopranos is chock full of good ideas, and you're totally right about that. But no, this movie is just fucking horseshit. It's so terrible. It's so bad. It angered me. Dave, I feel like I'm channeling you this week.
I know. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah, I knew that's why you were laughing.
I was so pissed because this movie could have and should have been at least okay. Like, I didn't have high expectations. I didn't think it was going to be amazing. I didn't think it was going to blow me away. Didn't think it was going to be, the next coming of The Sopranos. But I expected at least an okay okay movie. And it is just infuriating. It is so bad on every level, except for Vera Farmiga. I stand by that. I think she's great.
We're in the minority on this, by the way. People are kind of digging on this movie. I mean, they're not digging on it. They're saying like, well, it's good enough. That's kind of
and I say I call shit on that too.
Yeah. Oh, sure. But I mean, like some of the reviews I've read, it's like, did we watch the same movie? I mean, Jesus Christ. Even if you're someone unlike me and you love The Sopranos, it's like, really? You like The Sopranos so much that you're willing to tolerate this? Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, by the way, read the LA Times roundtable between the three critics because they do not love this.
Oh, good. All right, I'm going to Google it.
Justin Chang is one of them, and I unfortunately cannot remember the names of the other two critics. But yes, they do not love this, and they talk about the issues with it. But anyway, yes. And I saw another review that also was like, what? But yeah, you're right though. I've seen a lot of other reviews kind of waxing poetic about it, about how it's nice to revisit these characters. And yeah, okay. But like, it speaks to your point, Dave, like that these are not good people to idolize. And, and I know like both Evan and I are talking about how anti-heroes are compelling, even when they're terrible. And I still think that 100%. But again, you want to revisit these characters. No, I know you do. I know you were just talking, but I think you raise a really great point about, watching terrible people and watching terrible characters, because there is a very slippery slope, because with Breaking Bad, and I know I've talked about this many times, there are so many people who missed the point of the show. You are not supposed to idolize Walter White. He is the villain. He was the villain from episode 1, and you were supposed to know that.
Well, it's like people who idolize Scarface. It's like,
yes,
what do you mean you like?
Point.
What do you mean you like Tony Montana? Tony, whatever his name is. What is his name? Tony Montoya.
Montoya.
Well, it's like Tony Montana. What the fuck is wrong with me? It's just like
no, but he's a villain. He's an abusive piece of garbage. He's terrible. It is a warning. It is. Yeah, you might find him interesting, but that's where it should end. You should not want to be like him.
Yeah. I will add that, Dave, you are actually correct. It is Tony Montana.
Oh, it is? Oh,
really?
Okay.
Yes.
I think it was Tony Montoya.
Yeah.
I'm making things up, clearly.
When I said what the fuck is wrong with me, I didn't mean that. So
take it back.
Yeah, I meant I am correct. Yay me. I haven't seen that movie in a decade. Yeah.
Well, do we have any final thoughts on this film?
I think I really said enough.
Yeah, same. I feel like we've all ranted a fair bit about this.
I'm tired. I'm sleepy now from my rant.
Yeah.
It's tiring. Okay, well, let's do a recap. So No Time to Die is in theaters right now. And Dave, you would say see it, right?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm going to see it based on your recommendation.
Yay.
Yay. Bingo Hell is on Amazon Prime right now. And what would you guys say?
Bing, no.
I don't know. I guess see it, but I don't know. I can't even feel that strongly in saying see it. I know that I enjoyed it, but I don't know how much I would stake my reputation on it.
Well put.
That is well put. I would say skip it. And The Guilty is on Netflix. And what would you guys say? Would you recommend it or not?
I mean, you can watch good.
This one.
Yeah, you can watch good Jake Gyllenhaal performances and other things, you know? So
that is a great point. Yes. Yeah, I would say if you just want to see it for Jake Gyllenhaal's performance, which is quite exceptional, yeah, then go ahead. But I would not recommend this. I would say the Danish film is better, but it also has very similar problems. And Evan, would you say see The Guilty, not see The Guilty?
No, I think I can't. I found myself more frustrated than positive about it. So I'm going to say no.
I agree that's the thing. This has some great positives, but I completely agree with you. I'm more frustrated too. Completely agree. And The Many Saints of Newark is in theaters and on HBO Max.
Hell no.
Is it safe to, okay, I was going to say, is it safe to say we all would say, fuck this movie, don't see it?
Oh my God. The TLDR version of my review is fuck this movie. Yeah.
I agree. But I will say the non-TLDR is really great and funny.
Yes.
By the way, I am so glad we all hated this movie because I would feel terrible ripping into it if one of you guys liked it. So I'm really glad we all were in agreement on it.
I actually am too, because like I know that you both really like The Sopranos, so I was a little worried that I'm going to like come out hot and you two are going to be like, fucking simmer down now, you know? So
no, I was the hothead this week about it.
Yeah. I didn't have to worry.
Right. And I saw this on Friday night. So I've been stewing for days.
You had 5 days to get angrier about it. Yeah.
Yes. Which every day I would say to my roommate, what the fuck was going on with that movie? Like, it just made me madder and madder. All right. Well, those are our recommendations, which actually we don't really recommend anything this week except for No Time to Die and kind of a lukewarm, tepid recommendation from Evan on Bingo Hell.
Yeah. There you go.
Unusual week, folks. Well, we want to give a huge thank you to our amazing editor, Otto Clammer. Otto, thank you for everything you do for us week after week. You make us sound great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you rock.
Otto really does. Otto is really cool. You all should follow Otto Clammer on Instagram. They're amazing. You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you can get podcasts. We are everywhere. You can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can find us on social media. We are Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook, and we're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and TikTok. We are all over the place, so come join us on the social meds. You can reach out to us on social media. You can also reach out to us via email at spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can call us
at 862-21-PEACE.
Send us an email. Leave us a voicemail message. Tell us, no, The Many Saints of Newark is amazing. What is wrong with all of you? Or tell us if you agree. We want to know. We love hearing from you. And if you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. That really helps us out, gets the word out about the show. You can also go to Apple Podcasts and rate it there. That helps us out tremendously. And if you really, really like the show, like really, really, please consider joining our Patreon. This week, we talked about the sci-fi comedy Attack the Block. We had a great conversation. We always have a good time here on the main show and on our Patreon bonus episodes, which you get access to new episodes each week and our entire back catalog of bonus episodes for $5 a month. And you get to vote in polls. You also can sign up for $1 a month. And we would love to have you.
Indeed, we would.
So we want to give a huge thank you to all of our patrons. And thank you, listeners. We appreciate you tuning in. We love doing the show and we love having you here with us. So thank you so much. My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network and a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinionS.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living. You can follow me on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Instagram as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.